Listen closely, because what you are about to hear is not random, accidental, or ordinary. It is a divine interruption, time-targeted, and sent straight into the deep places of your spirit. There is a reason your heart felt that sudden pull to open this message. There is a reason your atmosphere has been shifting. And there is a reason your soul has been whispering, something is coming. Because yes, something is coming. Something meant for you. Something with your name written on it. Something heaven safeguarded, even in the moments when your life felt like it was falling apart. You have walked through seasons where it felt like pieces of your destiny were slipping through your fingers. You faced losses that cut deeply, opportunities that vanished, relationships that broke resources, that dried up moments you can't get back, seasons you never thought you'd survive. And yet here you are, standing, listening, still searching for the voice of God in the midst of everything that was taken from you. But hear this with every part of your spirit: what was stolen is being returned. What was delayed is being released. What was broken is being restored. What was lost is coming back multiplied. This is not just encouragement. This is not just inspiration. This is a prophetic announcement. Heaven has issued a mandate of restoration over your life. Even now, there are things moving behind the veil that you cannot see, but can feel the subtle tightening in your chest, the quiet quickening in your spirit, the way your intuition has been louder lately, the way your dreams have been speaking in symbols you can't yet decode. Something has been waking up inside you. Something has been stirring around you. And something has been rearranging for you, because God is not simply giving you back what was taken. He is restoring it in a way that makes the loss make sense. The pain had purpose. The delay had direction. The attack had assignment. And the enemy, despite all he tried, could not stop what God preserved for the appointed time. And that time is now approaching. Before this message ends, you will understand why certain things were stripped away, why certain people disappeared, and why certain doors remained closed. You will see the pattern. You will feel the shift. And you will recognize that the God who watched you lose it is the same God who is now returning it. This is your moment of divine recovery. And this right here is the first sign. And as this truth settles into your spirit, let me take you deeper. Because this isn't just a feeling, a coincidence, or a hopeful thought. What you're experiencing right now is the echo of something spoken in the heavenly realm, long before you ever faced the losses, long before the attack began, long before you even understood the weight of what was entrusted to you. This restoration you're sensing, it originates from God Himself. There are moments in life when heaven leans closer than usual. When the veil thins, when divine intention becomes almost tangible. You are in such a moment right now. Not because you asked perfectly, not because you walked flawlessly, but because God has seen the tears you didn't show, the battles you didn't announce, the private warfare you endured in silence. And He has decided it is time. The message being spoken over you is not born from imagination. It is rooted in divine authority. It comes from a God who keeps record of every injustice, every betrayal, every delay, every silent wound that tried to make you question your worth. Nothing escaped His sight. Nothing was unnoticed. And in His perfect timing, this timing, He is now sending clarity to the confusion, reason to the pain, and restoration to the areas of your life that felt emptied by force. Heaven has been watching the story unfold. The parts that broke you, the parts that tested you, the parts that nearly made you give up. And yet behind every moment that felt like loss, there was a promise still intact, untouched, hidden, protected, until the day you could receive it without it being stolen again. That day is drawing near. If you've been feeling a strange pressure in your atmosphere, if your emotions have felt heavier, sharper, or more sensitive, If you've noticed certain people being removed from your life with no explanation, it's because God has been clearing the space around you, not as punishment, but as preparation. Divine restoration cannot land on crowded, chaotic, or compromised ground. God restores with precision, and the message He is sending you right now is layered with meaning. I have not forgotten you. I have not abandoned you. I have not overlooked what was taken. I am the God who restores. Every shift you've felt lately, every sudden ending, every unexpected silence, every closed door has been a piece of this divine orchestration. You weren't losing randomly. You were being positioned intentionally. This restoration is not coming from human hands. It is not dependent on people who failed you, systems that ignored you, or opportunities that slipped away. It is coming from the one who sees the end from the beginning. The one who can breathe life back into things that looked finished. The one who specializes in divine reversals. You are being drawn into a moment where heaven's narrative overrides every earthly loss. A moment where God's voice speaks louder than what was stolen. A moment where the author of your destiny steps back into the storyline and says, "Now watch what I do next." This restoration is not a possibility. It is a decree. And now, it's time for the revelation to unfold. What's beginning to unfold in your life right now is not ordinary restoration. It is not the kind that simply replaces what was taken. No, what God is preparing to return to you carries a weight, a magnitude, and a divine intentionality that goes far beyond the original form. This is restoration with revelation, restoration with recompense, restoration with acceleration. And the prophecy is this: what was stolen from you is returning in a form the enemy can no longer touch. Feel that for a moment. Because this is not poetic language, it is a spiritual reality already forming in the unseen. The enemy didn't just attack you to cause pain. He attacked you to derail purpose, to slow destiny, to silence your voice, to drain your confidence. He wanted you broken enough to retreat, confused enough to doubt, weary enough to give up the inheritance meant for you. But what he failed to understand was the part of you that cannot be stolen: your divine assignment. And assignment is what heaven is reactivating right now. In the spirit, the return has already begun. It begins subtly, like the quiet return of strength you thought you'd lost. The unexpected moments of clarity, the sudden bursts of hope, the renewed desire to rise again. These are the tremor's early signs that something bigger is approaching. Because before God restores the external, He restores the internal. This prophecy over your life is layered, and each layer carries a message. Layer 1. What you lost was not wasted. Even when you felt emptied, heaven was storing the pieces. Nothing slipped from God's hand. Every season of loss has been accounted for and is now being redeemed. Layer 2. The return will not mirror what was taken, it will surpass it. God never returns anything in equal measure. He multiplies. He amplifies. He transforms what was stolen into something stronger, deeper, and wiser. Layer 3. The restoration will expose the enemy's failure. Every attack, every delay, every betrayal will be shown for what it was: not a defeat, but a setup. The enemy's interference unintentionally positioned you for a greater unveiling. The prophecy continues. There is a shift happening in the spiritual atmosphere around you. You may have felt it as restlessness, as unusual dreams, as sudden isolation, or as a sense that something is ending while something else is rising. This is because you are approaching a threshold, a spiritual crossing point, where what was held back is released and what was stolen is returned with interest. Picture it like a long closed vault in heaven finally swinging open, not because you forced it, but because the appointed time has arrived. God is saying, "I am restoring what the enemy stole. but it will not return to the same version of you who lost it. It will return to the healed, strengthened, awakened version of you who can now protect it. This is why the warfare intensified before the restoration. Because the moment you drew near to your season of return, resistance rose. The enemy always fights the hardest right before the breakthrough because he senses what you are about to receive. But resistance is not a sign of defeat. It is confirmation of what's coming. The prophecy also carries this truth. There is something you thought was gone forever, something you assumed would never return that heaven has preserved in full. A relationship that was broken, a calling that felt buried, a blessing that was delayed, a dream that was denied, a part of your identity that was stolen, a resource that was drained, a chance you thought you missed. God did not let it die. He hid it. He protected it. He kept it in waiting until your spirit was ready to receive it again. And now the season has shifted. The divine clock has struck. What was once withheld is now being released. You will not have to chase this restoration. You will not have to force it. You will not have to beg for it. It will find you. Because what heaven decrees cannot miss its destination. And this decree is clear. Everything stolen shall return. But before you receive it, you must understand why it mattered so much, why it was attacked so fiercely, and what this restoration truly represents in the story of your destiny. That revelation unfolds next. To understand why this restoration carries such weight, you must look beyond the surface of what was lost and see the spiritual architecture behind your journey. Because the truth is this, the things that were taken from you were never just things. They were symbols, markers, carriers of purpose. They represented pieces of your divine assignment. And that is why the attack against them felt so personal, so pointed, and so deeply painful. You see, restoration is never just about returning something. It is about recovering meaning. God is not simply giving you back what you lost. He is revealing what the loss was shaping inside you all along. Everything stolen had a spiritual dimension. The opportunity you missed wasn't just a job or a chance, it was connected to identity. The relationship that broke wasn't just emotional. It involved destiny, alignment. The dream that felt delayed wasn't simply ambition. It was part of a divine unfolding. The resources drained weren't about money. They were about freedom and movement. The confidence shaken wasn't psychological. It was spiritual preparation for authority. Every loss touched a deeper layer of who you are becoming. And this is where the spiritual meaning expands. The attack was never about the object, it was about the anointing attached to it. The enemy could see what you couldn't. He sensed the calling rising in you. He recognized the potential about to break through. He knew the weight you were destined to carry. And his strategy was simple: strike you where the loss would hurt the most. Why? Because pain distracts. Pain weakens. Pain can make you question your identity, your value, and your purpose. But here's the part the enemy underestimated. Pain also awakens. Pain sharpens. Pain recalibrates. Pain prepares. And God, in His sovereignty, allowed certain things to be taken, not to harm you, but to strip away illusions, assumptions, attachments, and dependencies that would have held you back in the next season. That is the spiritual depth behind your restoration. You are not getting back what you lost. You are getting back who you became because of the loss. This is why the return will feel different. This is why it will be heavier with purpose. This is why it will come with clarity you didn't have before. This is why it will settle into your life with a sense of divine timing that makes everything finally make sense. Imagine your life as a series of seasons, each one with its own landscape. There were seasons of abundance, where everything felt aligned, illuminated, effortless. There were seasons of wilderness where you wandered without answers. There were seasons of pruning where God stripped things that could not go with you. And then there were seasons of silence, those long, lonely stretches where you felt unseen, unheard, untouched by heaven. All of those seasons had purpose. In abundance, He taught you gratitude. In wilderness, He taught you dependence. In pruning, He taught you discernment. In silence, He taught you trust. And now, in restoration, He is teaching you identity. This restoration is not random. It is not compensation. It is culmination. It is the moment where every season aligns into a single revelation. God never abandoned you. He was preparing you. This is where the spiritual metaphors become clear. The storm. You weren't drowning, you were being strengthened. Storms don't just expose weaknesses, they activate endurance. They wash away what cannot remain. They reveal the strength of your spirit. The door. What closed was not rejection. It was redirection. Some doors protected you from entering places that would have drained your purpose. Others were locked because what's behind them was being prepared. The light. Even in dark seasons, there was a flicker, a glimmer, a whisper. That was God keeping your spirit alive. Light never left you. It hid until the right moment to break through. The journey. You weren't wandering without direction. You were being moved from who you were to who you needed to become. A journey is not judged by how straight the path is, but by where it leads. And now, the journey leads here, to the moment of divine recovery. The depth of this restoration is spiritual, because it completes the cycle. Wounding, awakening, awakening, preparation, preparation, revelation, revelation, restoration, restoration, elevation. You are stepping into the elevation phase. But before elevation can manifest outwardly, the restoration must complete inwardly. That is why God is speaking so strongly now. He knows you felt the emptiness. He knows you questioned His silence. He knows you wondered if you did something wrong. But this restoration is your confirmation that nothing was wasted, nothing was denied, nothing was forgotten. Everything is returning not as it was, but as it was always meant to be. And now that you understand the spiritual depth behind the prophecy, it's time to recognize the signs that the restoration has already begun. Those signs are next. Now that the spiritual foundation has been laid, it's time to recognize the signs, because restoration does not arrive without whispers, signals, and subtle movements that reveal its approach. And whether you've noticed them or not, these signs have already begun appearing around you, nudging your spirit, stirring your atmosphere, and confirming that heaven's decree is in motion. As you listen, pay close attention. Some of these signs may feel familiar, recent, or even intensely personal. That's because they are. Restoration is not a distant prophecy for you, it's already unfolding. Sign 1. A sudden shift in your emotional landscape. Lately, you may have felt a strange mixture of heaviness and hope, as if something was pressing on your spirit, while something else was lifting you. This is the clash between the old season and the new. Restoration creates spiritual friction as it pushes out what cannot remain and draws in what is returning. You may feel moments of unexpected peace, sudden clarity, or even bursts of strength that don't match your circumstances. These are signs that your spirit is aligning with what God is releasing. Sign 2. Unexpected distance from certain people. People who once felt close may begin to fade. Conversations lose their spark. Certain connections feel out of place. This is not coincidence, it is divine pruning. Restoration requires alignment, and God will not allow you to receive what's returning while being surrounded by those who could contaminate, hinder, or sabotage it. If people have drifted away recently, or if relationships ended abruptly, it may be heaven protecting what is being restored to you. Sign 3. A stirring of old desires or dreams. Perhaps a passion you thought was gone suddenly resurfaced. Maybe a dream you buried years ago has started whispering again. Or maybe a desire you abandoned has begun burning in you. This is not nostalgia, it is activation. Restoration brings back not only what was stolen, but also the fire that was connected to it. The reawakening of your inner desires is a sign that God is reviving the parts of you that were shut down by disappointment. Sign 4. Strange resistance or unusual warfare. Right before restoration manifests opposition often intensifies. Things may feel chaotic, unsettled, or harder than usual. You may face unexpected challenges or emotional turbulence. This resistance is not failure, it is confirmation. The enemy senses what is being returned and tries to create distractions or discouragement to pull you out of position. But the very presence of this warfare indicates that something is breaking open. Sign 5. Divine coincidences and perfect timing moments. You may begin noticing small moments of alignment, being at the right place at the right time. Hearing messages that speak directly to your situation, meeting people who carry answers, or receiving opportunities that seem tailor-made. These synchronicities are not random. They are heaven's breadcrumbs leading you toward what is returning. Sign 6. A deep internal knowing you can't explain. Perhaps the strongest sign of all, you simply feel different inside. You may not have the full picture yet, but something in your spirit is saying, something is coming back. Something is shifting. Something is unfolding. That inner knowing is the voice of the Holy Spirit preparing you for the return. These signs are heaven's way of saying you are closer than you think. But before restoration manifests fully, there are challenges you must understand, hidden struggles that test your readiness and refine your strength. And those hidden challenges are what we'll uncover next. Before the fullness of restoration manifests, there are challenges, quiet internal spiritual battles that often rise to the surface. Not because God is withholding anything from you, but because He is strengthening what will carry the blessing. Restoration is not fragile, but the version of you receiving it must be fortified. And so, He allows certain hidden challenges to appear not as punishment, but as preparation. As you listen to these challenges, you may recognize ones you've already faced. That's because the testing phase often begins before the restoration becomes visible. Challenge 1. The test of patience in the almost season. One of the hardest tests comes right before the breakthrough, when you feel close, when everything feels like it's shifting, yet nothing has fully manifested. This almost season is spiritually intense. It stretches your patience, stretches your faith, stretches your emotional endurance. You may feel tempted to rush the process or take matters into your own hands. But this challenge is designed to refine your ability to wait without wavering, because restoration requires stability, not desperation. Challenge 2. The silence that feels like abandonment. There are moments in the restoration process when God becomes unusually quiet. Not absent quiet. You pray, you listen, and you hear nothing. This silence can feel like abandonment, but it is actually a sacred classroom. God often speaks the loudest during silence by teaching you to trust what He already promised. His silence is not withdrawal. It is confidence that you are ready to stand on what you know, not just what you feel. Challenge 3. The return of old temptations or weaknesses right before God restores what was stolen. Old patterns, thoughts, or temptations may try to resurface. Not because you're going backward, but because your enemy is attempting one last distraction. He wants to pull you off your path, shake your confidence, or reopen wounds that God already healed. Recognize this for what it is, proof that restoration is near. The attack intensifies when the blessing approaches. Challenge 4. the weight of unexpected responsibility. You may suddenly feel pressure, emotional, spiritual, or mental, that seems heavier than before. This pressure is not meant to crush you. It is meant to strengthen your shoulders. Restoration requires responsibility. God is preparing you to steward what's returning so that nothing can be stolen again. This pressure is training, shaping, and expanding you for what's coming. Challenge 5. The fear of hope. Perhaps the most hidden challenge of all, the fear of hoping again. After experiencing loss or betrayal, hope can feel risky. Your heart may whisper, "What if it happens again?" But this challenge isn't designed to scare you. It's designed to heal you. God is inviting you to hope without fear, to expect without doubt, to believe without shrinking. These challenges are not signs that your restoration is being blocked. They are signs that your spirit is being strengthened for the weight of what's returning. You are not being tested to break. You are being tested to become. And once you understand how to stand through these challenges, you are ready to receive the instructions that position you for the return. Those divine instructions are next. Now that you understand the challenges that shape you for restoration, it's time to receive the instructions, the spiritual actions that align you with what God is returning. Because restoration is both a divine event and a sacred partnership. God releases it, but you must position yourself to receive it. These instructions are not rules. They are alignments. They are not burdens. They are invitations. They are not demands. They are pathways. And if you follow them, the restoration moving toward you will arrive with precision, clarity, and unstoppable force. Instruction 1. Clear the space physically, emotionally. Spiritually, restoration requires room, not just in your environment, but in your spirit. You cannot receive what God is sending if you're still holding on to what He removed. This may mean letting go of old attachments, memories, habits, relationships, or mindsets that belong to a previous season. If something or someone is no longer aligned with your destiny, release it. Clearing the space is not loss, it is preparation. Ask yourself, what am I still carrying that God already took out of my hands? Release it. Make room. Your restoration needs space to land. Instruction 2. Stand guard over your mind. Restoration begins internally before it manifests externally, and your mind is the most contested battlefield. This is where the enemy tries to plant doubt, fear, or confusion. You must guard your thoughts with intention. Every time a negative narrative enters, confront it. Replace it. Speak against it. Align your thoughts with truth, not fear. Say things like, "What God restores, no one can steal. What is for me will find me." God's timing is not delayed, it's precise. Your mind must be a sanctuary, not a war zone. Instruction 3. Move with quiet obedience. In this season, God may nudge you in small, subtle ways. Take a step here. Withdraw from something, there pursue something new. Revisit something old. Your job is not to understand the full plan. Your job is to obey the next instruction. Quiet obedience is powerful because it builds momentum. Heaven moves when you move, even if your steps are small. Listen closely. Act gently. Follow the nudges. Instruction 4. Protect your atmosphere. As restoration draws near, your atmosphere becomes sacred. Be mindful of what you allow into your space. Conversations, voices, energy, environments. If something drains you or disrupts your peace, step back. If someone brings chaos or confusion, create distance. Your spirit needs clarity, not clutter. Peace is not luxury in this season. It is protection. Instruction 5. Keep your hands open, not clenched. When you've lost before, it's easy to grip tightly out of fear. But clenched hands cannot receive new blessings. God restores to those who remain open, open to change, open to movement, open to unexpected blessings, open to new forms of what was lost. Tell God, I release control. I receive what you say, what you return. This openness invites heaven's flow. Instruction 6. Speak life over what is being restored. Your words create atmosphere. They shape expectation. They activate faith. Begin speaking restoration aloud, even if you cannot see it yet. Say things like, what was stolen is returning. What was broken is being rebuilt. What was delayed is being released. My life is aligning with God's timing. When your speech agrees with heaven, restoration accelerates. Instruction 7. Stay positioned, not passive. Positioning does not mean waiting without movement. It means being aligned, attentive, and spiritually alert. It means being ready for open doors, ready for opportunities, ready for breakthrough moments. Restoration favors those who stay awake. This is not the season to retreat into fear or exhaustion. This is the season to stand with quiet confidence. Instruction 8. Trust the timing, even when it feels slow. Divine restoration rarely arrives rushed. It arrives right on time, sometimes suddenly, sometimes gradually, but always perfectly. Trust that God is not late. Trust that He is not forgetting. Trust that He is aligning every detail. Timing is part of restoration. When you follow these instructions, you position your life as fertile ground, ready for what heaven is returning. And as you position yourself, God responds not with hesitation, but with protection, assurance, and divine covering. That covering is what comes next. As you align yourself with the instructions heaven has whispered, something beautiful begins to unfold around you. A shield, a covering, a divine protection that surrounds your life in ways you may not fully see, but can absolutely feel. Restoration is not delivered into vulnerability. It is delivered into protection. And right now, God is wrapping your life in a layer of spiritual security that ensures what returns to you will remain with you. You are not walking into this season alone. You are not receiving this restoration unguarded. You are stepping into a moment where heaven itself becomes your defense. There is a tenderness in the way God protects His chosen ones. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is subtle, intentional, strategic. And if you look closely, you may already sense His hand around you, redirecting you, shielding you, removing you from harm, or closing doors that would have jeopardized what is coming. Protection sign 1. The removal of hidden threats. Sometimes God removes people or opportunities without giving you the full explanation. It may feel confusing at first, but later you realize that He was shielding you from betrayal, manipulation, or spiritual contamination. Certain connections cannot remain when restoration arrives, and His protection often begins with separation. Protection sign 2. A new layer of inner peace. Even in the midst of uncertainty, you may feel a sense of calm that doesn't match your circumstances. That peace is not accidental, it is divine. Peace is one of God's greatest forms of protection. It guards your mind from fear, your heart from anxiety, and your spirit from being shaken. When restoration is near, peace becomes the anchor. Protection sign 3. Close doors that make no sense. You may be wondering why certain opportunities didn't work out, why certain pathways were blocked, why certain dreams were delayed. But closed doors are often God's most merciful act of protection. Not every door leads to destiny. Not every opportunity aligns with restoration. God blocks what would break you, so He can release what will bless you. Protection sign 4. The strength to walk away. Lately, you may have found yourself with new courage, courage to say no, courage to detach, courage to uphold boundaries you once struggled with. This is divine. God strengthens your spirit in advance so that you don't sabotage your own restoration by staying tied to what cannot go with you. Protection sign 5. invisible help in your weakest moments. Think of the moments when you almost broke, almost quit, almost collapsed under the weight of disappointment, and yet somehow you didn't. Somehow you held on. Somehow strength rose from nowhere. That somehow was God. Angels move quietly, but their impact is unmistakable. You were carried through storms you didn't even realize were meant to destroy you. All these forms of protection reveal a single truth. God is not just restoring what you lost, He is protecting what you are about to gain. You are moving into a season where loss will no longer define you, where fear will no longer control you, where the enemy will no longer have access to the places where you once felt exposed. This restoration is arriving wrapped in divine assurance. You will not lose it again. You will not be robbed again. You will not walk unprotected ever again. And with that covering firmly in place, your transformation is ready to unfold. What that transformation looks like comes next. With protection surrounding you and restoration drawing near, something even deeper begins to unfold your transformation. Because the truth is, restoration doesn't just return things to your life, it returns you to yourself. It awakens the parts of your identity that were buried under disappointment, fear, or exhaustion. It reignites the strength that loss tried to dim. It breathes life into the vision you thought had died. And it shapes you into someone who can carry what's coming with confidence, wisdom, and spiritual maturity. Transformation often begins quietly, long before anyone else sees it. It begins in the way you think, in the way you speak, in the way you perceive yourself, in the way you show up in your own story. You start noticing subtle shifts, moments where you respond differently, feel differently, expect differently. Not because life suddenly became easier, but because your spirit has expanded. This is one of the clearest signs that your restoration is close. You are not who you were when the loss happened. You've grown, you've healed, you've awakened, you've evolved, you've strengthened in silence, you've matured in the wilderness. You've discovered parts of yourself only pain could unlock. This transformation prepares you not just to receive the blessing, but to sustain it. As restoration unfolds, here's what begins to transform transformation. Your inner strength becomes unshakable. Where you once doubted, you now feel grounded. Where you once feared, you now feel prepared. Where you once hesitated, you now feel assured. Your spirit has gained muscle, spiritual resilience that cannot be stolen again. Transformation 2. Your identity becomes clearer. You no longer see yourself through the lens of loss. You no longer internalize what people did to you. You no longer measure your worth by what left your life. You begin to see yourself as God has always seen you, chosen, purposeful, powerful, and deeply protected. Transformation 3. Your discernment sharpens. Suddenly you can sense who is for you and who is not. You can feel which environments drain you and which elevate you. You can recognize what aligns with your future and what belongs to your past. This sharpened discernment prevents you from repeating patterns that once cost you deeply. Transformation 4. Your capacity expands. The version of you emerging from this journey is wiser, stronger, and more capable than you've ever been. You can handle more responsibility. You can carry more purpose. You can navigate more opportunities without losing yourself. You've been strengthened for what's returning. Transformation 5. Your faith activates on a higher level. Where before you questioned God's timing, now you trust His orchestration. Where before you felt uncertain, now you feel aligned. Where before you felt abandoned, now you feel carried. Your faith is no longer fragile, it's fortified. And all of this inner transformation leads to the moment you've been waiting for, the moment of fulfillment. Fulfillment is when everything aligns: the timing, the blessing, the readiness, the protection, the clarity, the identity. Fulfillment is when what God promised begins to manifest in your reality. Doors opening opportunities, returning relationships, healing resources, flowing dreams, awakening, and pathways clearing. It is the moment when everything you endured finally makes sense. You realize the loss wasn't the end. It was the beginning. It was the setup. It was the shaping. It was the preparation for the greater return. Fulfillment is heaven's way of saying, you survived what was meant to break you. Now receive what is meant to bless you. And as this transformation settles into your spirit, one final movement remains: the blessing. The affirmations, the closing words that seal this prophecy over your life. Those final declarations are next. Before you step back into your day, before the world tries to pull your attention in 1,000 different directions, pause here, right here, and let this moment imprint itself on your spirit. Because what you've just heard is not simply a message. It is a divine decree, a spiritual shift, a turning point in your journey. Restoration is not coming. It has already begun. You can feel it. You can sense it. You can almost see it forming around you. And now, to seal this word into your spirit, speak these affirmations aloud or whisper them in your heart, because your voice carries power and your words activate what heaven has already released. Affirmation 1. What was stolen from me is returning in greater measure. Let this become the foundation of your expectations. Not equal return, greater return. Not partial recovery, complete restoration. Affirmation 2. I am aligned, protected, and positioned for divine restoration. You are no longer vulnerable, no longer exposed, no longer wandering. Heaven has aligned your steps with precision. Affirmation 3. I receive everything God has preserved for me, not what you lost, what was preserved. Because heaven kept safe what the enemy tried to steal. Affirmation. My life is entering a season of fulfillment, clarity, and divine breakthrough. Say it with confidence. Say it with expectation. Say it with faith, because your spirit knows it's true. And now, receive this blessing. May the God who sees every tear you cried restore every place where you felt broken. May He return what was stolen in a form the enemy can no longer touch. May He surround your life with protection, direction, and unshakable peace. May He guide your steps into the opportunities prepared for you. May He strengthen your spirit, illuminate your path, and multiply every blessing assigned to your destiny. May restoration come swiftly, fully, and undeniably. And may you walk with confidence, knowing that heaven has spoken on your behalf. You are stepping into a season where divine compensation becomes your reality, where everything that left your life returns transformed, where everything that broke you becomes the reason you rise stronger, where everything that was delayed suddenly accelerates, where everything stolen returns, and then some. Walk forward with expectation. Walk forward with confidence. Walk forward knowing your restoration is not just promised. It is guaranteed. It is unfolding. It is here.